Welcome to the lab, the Canelo versus Charlo pre-fight breakdown. And what we're going to be doing different this time is we're not going to have all these individual pieces moving around. I'm going to look at some individual rounds that I think are going to be very reflective of what might happen in the fight. And we're going to be looking at analog fighters with a similar style to the opposite opponent. So for Charlo, we're looking at Castaño, and I think the closest we got for Canelo, we're looking back at Daniel Jacobs. So we're just gonna get straight into it like usual. So let's get into it. And so one good thing Charlo changed when he came out for that second fight versus Castaño was being more aggressive with that jab and trying to establish dominance on that outside and keep Castaño away from him, which is something he's definitely gonna need to do with Canelo, because Castaño was trouble for him on the inside and in mid-range. Canelo's gonna be even more trouble. And then you see Castaño on the prowl hunting him down right here. You see how Castaño's taking these steps trying to cut him off. Canelo's gonna be doing the same thing, except for he's gonna be more explosive with his entries. We're gonna look at Canelo's explosive entries later. And Charlo definitely, Derek James in the first fight kept telling him, hey, stay off the ropes, stay out the corner, blah, 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 blah. And whenever he was on the ropes, Castaño would be working on him, and that's when he would get hurt the most, and he would get the most points scored on him. Canelo's no different. The only difference is Canelo's even more dangerous. You see what I'm saying? He in the corner, he on the ropes. Castaño feel comfortable opening up and start landing stuff on him. Also, that's another underrated thing. Like, a secret weapon that Mel has is that jab to the body. If he can work that on Canelo and try and get out of there before Canelo start countering him and stuff like that, I think that's a great shot to go to. It works off the jab, it reinforces the jab, but then also it's targeting some of those breathing muscles, right, to start slowing Canelo down, which is, I think, going to be an integral part of the game plan. Another key, Canelo's coming into range. Hey, open up, punish him. Don't let him come into range unchallenged. Make him pay. But look, you can see the difference. You see how he take this little back step. He see Castaño stepping in. He make a little bit of room trying to counter that entry. He's like, you're not gonna come in unless you get caught with something first. Right here is an important moment. Okay, Castaño's trying to enter in again. He does like a level change, jab to the chest. Okay, when you think about two of the most recent fights that Canelo had a lot of trouble with, two tall, rangy fighters working behind a jab that had the footwork to escape Canelo, so they would attack him with their jab and stuff like that, escape. So Bivol and Caleb Plant, that's what I'm talking about. Caleb Plant gave him some issues in those early rounds. I know people don't mention it, but it's true. And Bivol was keeping that stick in his face. Pause. He was keeping that jab in his face. And then look, Charlo throws the 1-2, and what does he do? He escapes. He starts lateral movement. Get out of there. That's gonna be the key. Whenever you touch up Canelo, get out of there, because Charlo has the stamina, at least at 154, to do all these attacks and then use his feet to get out of there and escape. He's gonna need to do that. Now here's where he might run into some trouble. Watch what he does. He tries to duck and smother, come in for the clinch. What does Castaño do? Frames off of him, make space. And if Canelo was in that situation, which we're gonna show him being in a similar situation, Canelo's gonna work. And Charlo's gonna be in danger. So if he is going duck and smother, he need to be more defensively responsible, or maybe don't do it like that. It's a shaky area. And I think what he's trying to do, is that when he gets his back to the ropes, like right here, he's like, okay, now I gotta shut down everything so he can't open up, which is smart. You know, he's fighting where he's strong and trying to shut down the fight where he's weak. Another thing is that, like, the shots you see Charlo landing on Castaño, not only is Canelo going to take them better, he's going to take less of them, because he has far better head movement than Castaño. It's not even in the same realm. Far better defense in every regard. Canelo's far better than Castaño in every regard. Jab to the body. And that got a reaction out of Castaño. Those jabs to the body don't just help establish the jab, which then helps establish your offense and defense. It's also building up over time that stamina drain, which you need to do versus Canelo. One of the keys for Charlo is going to be that weaponized cardio. Charlo, if he has any cardio like how he does at 154, is going to have noticeably superior wind than Canelo. He needs to weaponize that, get Canelo tired so he can start outboxing him in a more easy fashion. Well, these probes These are the bane, the absolute enemy and destruction to the Eddie Reynoso style. You see that with Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson. You saw it with Valdez versus Navarrete. You've seen it with Bivol versus Canelo. You've seen it a little bit with Caleb Plant versus Canelo. When they're coming forward in a high guard like that, they're very reliant on that high guard to set up offense and defense. Like that's one of the primary defenses, and it also sets up their offense. But when you put that probe out there, you're blinding them, you're shutting down any attempt at anything. So if he can keep that probe out there in Canelo's face and just occupy his vision, occupy that guard, he can really make this fight way different than how a lot of people are expecting it to look. So he's against the ropes, Castaño putting hands on him, and then when he finds the opportunity to get out of there, he gets grazed a little, but what's he doing? Bouncing on his toes, lateral movement, not standing in front of Castaño. That's one issue when you jabbing out of this guard. That's one issue when you're jabbing out of this guard. That jab it don't come back to the temple or the jaw or whatever, and so that right hand is going to be there, and Canelo is he's going to find that way easier than Castaño. Basically, one of the keys is absolute defensive responsibility, because the shots that Castaño was landing, if Canelo lands the same, it's going to be it's going to be a completely different story. All right, let's look at Canelo. And with a more classic Canelo, because this is a few years ago, so this version of Canelo might not show up as sharp as this one, but it's the closest fighter I've seen recently to Charlo. So, but this version of Canelo, sometimes he'll be really flat-footed, feet planted, and so it takes him a while to reset. That's what I'm saying. You see how, like, let's look at how long it takes him to reset and track Jacobs down when he circles around with the jab. Canelo's like, okay, boom. It took him like a whole second to 2 seconds to reset and follow Jacobs. That's why when Canelo's flat-footed, Charlo's moving around him. Okay, there's something there. But if you stand in front of Canelo too long, he's gonna start establishing that offense. Boom, jab comes out. What happens when the jab lands? Okay, now he starts getting comfortable mixing up his shots, and that left hook is gonna come around. Although he's known for being flat-footed, when he makes those entries, he can actually be quite explosive. And this is what I was talking about. Daniel Jacobs tries to do what Charlo did, duck and smother, shut down that offense. What does Canelo do? He get that forearm frame in the neck, making room, and but Daniel Jacobs is strong, so Canelo was struggling in that position. And then let's say Charlo's laterally moving a lot. What's Canelo gonna do? He's gonna try and cut him off with punches, so that right hook around the side, trying to catch him where he's going, so cut off the ring with punches basically. And like I said, those explosive entries, he's able to close his distance way better than probably people will give him credit for. Like, you see how he explodes out of that stance with the jab, and he has to because he's 5'7", but that's what he's gonna be doing versus Charlo. And this is what I mean by the head movement. It puts him in positions to counter. So here he parries, steps around at an angle, lands that jab on Daniel, then he steps around with another double jab. You see how this is what I found interesting looking at this, is that he's kind of floating with it. So he's flat-footed, but when he's not flat-footed, that's a dangerous little man, bro. What is Daniel doing? He's keeping that probe out there. He's not doing as much as he should, but Canelo's trying to land some shots. Well, what Jacobs got to do? He got to counter him too. That's what Charlo was doing, right? So Charlo countering those entries. If Canelo's opening up, you got to attack him. Punish him for opening up, counter punching. You got to counter punch the counter puncher and make him hesitant. Look at the distance control from Daniel Jacobs, using his feet to get that space in between them, shut down any attempts at mid-range combinations from Canelo. I'm like, okay, Jacobs is in a similar position to Charlo a lot of times, where he has that left hand more down, and Canelo's already looking at that like, okay, if you want to keep that left hand down, I'm gonna throw that four over top. Stay in the center of the ring. Notice how rarely, should I say, Daniel Jacobs is against the ropes. Daniel Jacobs is putting out this tapping jab, occupying the guard and vision of Canelo. And what's Canelo doing? Canelo's, pulling back, he's trying to find something. But it's better to make him try to find something than allow him to find it in the first place. Jab to the body from Jacobs. Canelo didn't react too well to that because he's not used to that jab to the body. And then jab up top, just controlling Canelo. That's what Charlo needs to focus on. Controlling them from the outside, making them work, constantly resetting them with lateral movement. Now this is something Charlo needs to watch out for. When he's stepping in with these combinations, we saw Charlo throwing some similar combinations, stepping in with a 1-2 or a 1-1-2. And Canelo has the vision to pull back and try and counter him when he tries to get his head off the center line. That wasn't in an attempt to counter him right there. He was trying to catch him with his head movement. So Canelo is smart like that. So let's look at this. Canelo doing the same thing. That jab keeping him occupied, but when the jab stops, okay, now he can open up. He throws a jab, but then what's he gonna do after? That left hook. So he's mixing up that lead hand attack. Fine. That's why I'm fine using older footage, because some of the same patterns you're seeing in recent fights, like the Bivol fight, you're seeing here, because a lot of stuff is still intact. He's still Canelo. And so when that jab or that probe is in his face, what's he doing? He's reacting in a defensive way rather than an offensive way, so you can keep him occupied, right? So in the Bivol fight, he was reacting more, staying in his high guard, having his hand stuck to his head. Here, he's using his head movement, but he's not counterpunching. And that's the key. Keep Canelo from opening up. And then when does Daniel Jacobs make a miss? When he gets out of there. Keep Canelo out of range. Easier said than done, but it has to be done. Look what happens when you're standing in front of Canelo and you're stationary. He's gonna start opening up, that's gonna be a key for Canelo, is not staying there with one punch combinations from the outside. If he's gonna close that distance, he needs to close the distance with a combo, not just a single punch like how he usually does. So he do a 1-1, a 1-1-2, a 3-2, something more than just a single shot. I think the keys for Charlo are going to be body work, not just with the body jab, but when they're on the inside, tagging that body with hooks and uppercuts, trying to slow Canelo down early. And then what he's going to do, what he should do, is weaponize his cardio, weaponize that lateral movement, make Canelo work, make Canelo guess, make him have to chase you down, and then tire him out in the later rounds, work behind that jab, stay on the outside, stay off the ropes, feint, right? So he's not easily getting countered. If he's constantly open up, he has breathing room to throw his shots. Yeah, be defensively responsible, be aware, lateral movement, don't stand in front of him. That's the general overview of the type of game plan I would give for Charlo. Canelo needs to be more dynamic than what he's been in some of his most recent fights. And he even said something like that himself. He said he knows that his most recent performances haven't been up to the standard. He's right. He needs to, not just work behind that high guard, but, he needs to do more than just work behind that high guard. He needs to use it as a trap, like how he's done in the past, to get his opponent to open up and he can counter. Canelo's at his best when he's counterpunching. So he needs to bring that head movement back, utilize that more to open up offensive opportunities, tag Charlo's body, close the distance with combinations, not just single shots. Get Charlo on the ropes by cutting off the ring, work on him there. When Charlo tries to duck and smother, shut down those attempts to try and get offense in on the inside. Conserve your stamina, be patient. Keep that vision active, because for Charlo, one of the keys I said was probe and keeping that jab, that lead hand in his face to block that vision of Canelo and keep him at bay. But for Canelo, he needs to find a way to get over top that or underneath that so he can shut down those attempts to, blockade his offense. Okay, I'll do a brief fight simulation for how I think this is gonna go. Canelo comes out kind of, we'll say like in the Daniel Jacobs first round, where he's walking down like usual, high guard, looking for shots, kind of like moving his head, kind of like baiting and feinting, and then Charlo's kind of standing in front of him somewhat, but whenever Canelo steps to him aggressively, Charlo jumps back, trying to keep the distance. And then Charlo will get on the ropes for like a quick second. That's when Canelo will try and close the distance and open up. A shot or two will get through. It's a pretty uneventful round, and then they come out in the second round, things get more hectic, and Charlo gets cornered, and he's trying to counter Canelo coming in. Canelo's trying to counter him, so it's a battle of who can stop who from doing what they need to do offensively. So they're both trying to counter each other, and Canelo's moving his head, great defense, all that. Charlo stab him to the body from the outside. That's probably gonna be a lot of the rounds. And then Canelo's gonna be landing some good shots. He's probably, I think, you know what? They're probably gonna trade some of the early rounds because Charlo's gonna be giving him some trouble with the jab from the outside. But then when Canelo closes distance, he's gonna be landing those power shots that get the judges' attention. I think Canelo's gonna be very patient early on, trying to look for patterns, trying to see, okay, is Charlo ducking this way? If he's ducking that way, throw the uppercut. If he's leaning that way, throw the hook. You know, Canelo's gonna be looking for patterns, and he's probably gonna try and feint, get a reaction out of Charlo, and when he gets that reaction, he's gonna look to counter whatever Charlo's doing. And then Charlo's gonna be looking to enforce his game plan, stay on the outside, throw the 1-2, you know, kind of like how he fought Castaño. I think ultimately what's gonna end up happening is that in those middle rounds, Canelo's gonna start slowing down like how he does. He's gonna start dropping his hands, and Charlo's gonna connect more often, but Charlo's gonna get a little bit too overzealous because he's landing more, and then that's where Canelo's gonna find a counter shot, hurt him, and then stop him. But I like to bring in a little bit of flair into the fight simulation. So I don't know how accurate that might be. I'm not too confident in that one. But I think Canelo's gonna win either by KO and, like, you know, let's say 8 or 10, or after he has some tough rounds. Those middle rounds for Canelo are gonna be tough. So that's a likelihood that could happen. Or it's gonna be Canelo by decision. But if Charlo utilizes a lot of the Bivol game plan, staying on his toes, jabbing, probing, you know, countering Canelo when he's coming in, Charlo can win actually a pretty convincing decision. But I think Canelo's gonna win probably by KO or by a pretty convincing decision. So that is my prediction. And that is all, actually. Immortality Serum out.